Namaste. Welcome to Getting Intimate with Intimacy, space for deep exploration of the mind, body, and soul connection. I am Jamie London Wahlberg, he, they pronouns.
I am Katie Jane, she, her, Faye.
I am Raven Mist, she, her, Faye as well.
Getting Intimate with Intimacy will cover consistent multimedia content spanning all forms of intimacy, from sexual to intellectual and everything in between.
Our content is created for all beings and bodies and abilities 18 and up.
Our content can be enjoyed on YouTube as well as InsightTimer and OnlyFans. The links will be in the description for our live streams.
We really look forward to experience the infinite layers of intimacy with all of you.
And remember,
Intimacy
starts within.
Namaste, everyone, and welcome back to another glorious episode of Getting Intimate with Intimacy. It is episode 28. We are here with a totally new question. How do physical cues impact intimacy with others? And we are going to introduce this topic and get into this conversation. What a great question from Raven, and I'm super excited. I am Jamie, he, they pronouns.
Katie Jane, she, her, Faye.
I am Raven Mystic, she, her.
And we are getting into it. Let's get intimate, shall we? So we're going to break this down, as we do typically, into a number of pre-questions. So our first question is, what are physical cues, and how does awareness of your body's cues impact intimacy with others? Raven, I throw it to you. What is on your mind?
Well, this is a lot on my mind, but it goes into, just different things. Physical cues and your emotional signals, right? Those are the big things, like your body's awareness, and and body wisdom, which that's a whole nother, but your physical cues, right? Like a sigh, like just a sigh is a physical cue, right? Or if you're like your eyebrows or people's eyebrows might be raised, just like something there, but I'm not too sure what it is, right? Lean in or flinch, things like those type of physical cues. But also too, knowing that you can feel it. If it's like a disruptive energy, like your body will tune in and feel that. If it feels disruptive, if it feels like it's just a heaviness or a lower vibration or things like that, that's also body wisdom. But just that awareness, that inner awareness, knowing. And if your nervous system and things like that, if it is warning, abort, abort, things like that, yes, it's like, okay, am I safe is the number one thing. Why is my body even responding to this right now? Let's check in with that. And why are these cues? And we have these inner awareness in our inner compass to know, hey, maybe I'm not safe right now. I might need to look for an exit where I need to exit, and I might not be, let's fill this out. Let's just see. And we'll go from there. But you also will know a physical cue when your tummy softens and you're calm, and you don't have to wear a mask around people or things, and you literally can just be yourself. And you won't feel nervous, or you won't feel this heaviness, or it won't feel like a lower vibration or any of those things. Those are so vital for your physical cues.
That's insightful, Raven. That's very clear definition. I love that. KJ, are you resonating with Raven, or do physical?
Yes, I definitely do. And like some of other physical cues that come to mind for me are like sweating, right?
Yeah.
Something can happen. All of a sudden you're sweating, and it could be a cold sweat. It could be the hot sweat. It could be prickles on the back of your neck, right? It could be kind of like a shiver that goes down your spine. You could sweaty palms, right? Maybe there's this like something in your eye. A lot of people get like spiritual signals, and they're like, oh man, like there's that eyeball again. Like, what am I missing? Right? It could be your ear ringing, right? Am I missing something? Am I listening? Is there, a higher purpose? Is there a layer that I'm missing? things like that. Definitely everything that Raven said. And like that's what occurred to me too. And it is also like so valuable. Like Raven said, it's a checkpoint, right? When your body gives you those cues, those physical cues, it is an opportunity for me as an individual to be like, oh, what is my body telling me? Right. Or then we've also talked about kind of in past episodes of having those cues and like maybe missing them if you are already in a heightened emotional state, or if you're out in public and there's lots of other people and noise and sound, right? Things going on that can affect whether you are even aware of your body's cues, or how aware or how present, you are with those things. But it's always an opportunity to, to check in and take stock. For sure.
I resonate with both of what you're saying, and you're giving some great ideas as to not only ideas, examples as to what physical cues are. And it's having me think about physical cues in somewhat of a different, more zoomed out observer mode approach to what they are. Because as I'm listening to both of you, and I'm like, yeah, and these are totally all physical cues. What comes up for me is the question of, well, when did I start noticing what physical cues were? And that question obviously had me realize how long it was until I realized that there were physical cues that I was giving and receiving, and then being able to actually start to understand and make meaning of what those are. And of course, the easy answer that I went to was neurodivergence. However, then I went to, well, duh, because as souls in a physical human experience, if we don't have physical cues, then we don't address or acknowledge or actually register that we are in a physical body. And so if you are neurodivergent, or if you've experienced trauma and you are feeling dissociative, or you have not been taught to ground into your body, then acknowledging that physical cues are happening and what they mean is going to be really challenging for you, most likely. Um, and becomes something that you sort of learn and acknowledge. And so now what I'm seeing for me that physical cues means is it's a powerful communication mechanism and process, allowing for the spiritual being to be the human being. And that what's powerful about it is it communicates about different big areas, because both of you touched upon, right, like the sexual intimacy, the physical intimacy in general, the spiritual intimacy that KJ was speaking to as well. And
Mhm.
um what I'm seeing also is that it's areas like connecting with a friend who's platonic, connecting with a friend who is a romantic friend, someone who you're in a romantic relationship with, someone who you're a
Mhm.
collaborator with. And then also, you know, allows you to communicate and bridge between the other bodies of the mental, emotional, and spiritual bodies, as well as human experiences categorically, such as new connections, right? Like what is most humans, right? We have culturally an understanding of, when I meet someone, I shake their hand, I hug them. We do our super secret handshake that no one else knows and understands, like, right? Like, we do a fist bump. Like, it's wild how much we don't talk about these things, really. We just start doing them and understanding them. And how much on a health journey, right? As being in a physical vessel, like, these physical cues help us to understand that, as well as with what Raven was saying, like the red flag and the green flag, especially in any sort of physical intimacy, whether it's a hug or in platonic,
Mhm.
or whether it's a handshake, like, does this feel good to me, right? And then it lets me think about burnout. So I'm really seeing physical cues are so much more to me now than, okay, I'm communicating this or I'm feeling this. It's really saying so much more. It's this data and this bridge that's processing through. And it's it's kind of amazing. Like, that's a miracle that we are able to do that. And I think that it impacts our intimacy massively to acknowledge and observe and create meaning and then communicate what that means with someone else as opposed to assuming it. I'm curious, Raven, how do physical cues impact intimacy with others in your perspective?
How does physical cues impact? Gosh, a lot. Because, well, especially when you are very in tune with your body awareness, right? So your psychic abilities are picking up way more than maybe that other person. Probably we're picking up on theirs, right? So those physical cues for me helps me just by me. Here we go again with the observer mode, right? I just love this. And the reason being because I observing how is their physical cues, their body language. Are they closed off? Is their legs crossed over, or their hands, or are they like this? Like if they're like this, they're not open. Not at all. They're very, very closed off, probably because of things, life, right? And people, and they're unsure. They're just not those type of things. Or if people, okay, another physical cue is if they're not literally looking at the eye, their body's shifting so freaking much, or they can't even look at you straight in the eye, you know that they are not revealing the whole truth. They're hiding something from you. Like that's another body cue. Or the way their voice is, if it's soft, compassionate, understanding, caring, or if it's stern and just aggressive, right? Those type of things you can tell. Also, too, when people are open, just like I said, the tone of their voice, how they use their persona, how they're sitting, or their structure, or their statue, things like that. They give away a lot of their body cues by just observing. Absolutely. And observing ourselves, and what body cues are we putting out the same body cues as they are? Are we reflecting what they are reflecting back to us, or those type of things too as well? Yeah.
Micro follow-up question, just because of something that you just touched upon. So what would you say in terms of observing and then maybe not being aware of certain intricacies, such as someone being not neurodivergent, maybe eye contact is hard for them. So maybe it's not necessarily a truth thing because as we know and is being opened up in conversation broadly, um, being neurodivergent, a lot of people who are neurodivergent actually have a really hard time lying because either they give it away or they just can't. Like that filter does not exist for them. That's not something that registers if they're masking. As well, something else that came to me was, as a trans non-binary person, there's a lot of cues that I used to make that I don't make anymore, or that I still make, and people make meaning of those cues and they're confused because they don't know that I'm trans. So it's just, I'm curious, within those things, what could you suggest and say around intimacy with others in terms of the other communication level that's required around them? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Totally understandable, right? Okay. If not a physical cue, right? They could literally express themselves and write it down. How that literally makes them feel intimately, right? If they can express themselves in that way, or paint a picture in their expressions, or anything that makes them feel safe to share, to do so, what makes them feel comfortable within their physical cues, because everybody's so different in how they even express their physical cues too as well.
That makes sense. I like that suggestion. KJ, how is this for you? What are your perspectives on how physical cues impact intimacy with others?
Oh, I love all of this. And I just wanted to follow up on what you just said, Jamie, briefly before I expand. That's a very good, point that you brought up, that there are people that are just, our brains work differently, right? So things like that can be a factor. I absolutely hear that. And it, for me personally, I think it's, for me, as I have learned about for myself about neurodiversity, right? I like to say neurospiciness, my neurospicy brain, very neuroquirky. Not only have I noticed that like my field includes more others that are the same, right? Similar, right? That have similar quirks and brains. It's just something that due to my own journey with like growing my awareness, right? And then my natural empathy for others, I can typically tell. I'm one that has worked consciously on eye contact. When I was younger, I didn't like it. I didn't want to. I got too much information from looking at people in their eyes because I was young and unfiltered and not knowing about boundaries, right? And very empathic, very easy to connect with people. So that is something that I have consciously, you know, in a professional and social atmosphere worked on, eye contact. And like, I'm really good at it because I understand the value of making somebody feel seen and received, right? So if somebody is talking to me and we're having a conversation, I have no problem making that eye contact, holding that space now in this point in my life. And I can usually tell, like sometimes I've even like recently had an experience where somebody, maybe it looks from the outside like they're not acting compassionate or they're not responding to somebody else that's emotionally like, but they're autistic. And so they are just actually not comfortable in that situation and don't feel able to engage with that person's heightened emotions, right? So yes, there are many, many nuances, right, when it comes to that. But there is so much, I think, on a regular basis that is subconscious between all of us as human beings, right? We are constantly reading people's physical cues. They're giving, you know, like, yeah, and they can change day to day, right? So I have days where I'm definitely more closed off and I don't want to, you know, welcome too much attention or energy, right? More to that, I just usually just like embrace my resting bitch face if I want people to leave me alone, right? I'm serious, just go around my business, right? I do kind of keep my eyes down more, like not looking at people to invite that eye contact, right? If I don't want it. But I also, another thing that occurred to me when we're talking about how do physical cues impact intimacy with others on a personal level. Again, if we're talking about intimacy starting with yourself, something that has been a really impactful learning for me is to honor my body's cues. If, say, I've had plans, right? I have plans to go out, but then my stomach is turned off or something, right? Like I have something come up in my body or emotionally that to the point where my body is like, I can't. I don't want to. I need to rest. I need to honor that. I was really looking forward to these plans, but now for whatever reason or a mix of things, I'm not up for it, right? So that's honoring me. When in the past, and I can reach out and say, hey, I'm really sorry, this is what happened, right? Or a phone call, a text, whatever's appropriate. But that being able to, that's advocating and self-care for me, right? Of me honoring and saying, hey, one, I do want to see you. I want to do these plans. It sounds great. Right now, this is where I'm at and I can't do it. So let's reschedule, right? And so it's that knowledge rather than pushing myself to go ahead and show up. If I did that and I do that, or I have done that, right? I can clearly see for myself that how it impacts my intimacy with others, right? If I choose to go out or to go to an event or something when I am feeling like I don't want to go, then yes, I'm going to show up in a different state, and my ability to be intimate, even emotionally, mentally, right, to show up and hold that space for others is going to be impacted. So that's something that really like has been that's what's come up for me like during this conversation, is that like if you're not tuned into your own physical cues, it will absolutely have a ripple effect and be able to affect that with other people.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, both of you said so much good stuff that I want to speak to right now, but I'm gonna attempt to just speak to one key thing that both of you said as I expand. Raven, you spoke to something you didn't use totally. I don't know if you use this language, but essentially for me, what you were speaking to is what I referred to as mirroring, right?
Mm-hmm.
When someone, and maybe you did use the word, I don't know, but the mirroring of someone's physical cues, and are you
Mm-hmm.
doing those same things? And
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting because relatively recently I was learning that about a cue that I would do all the time that I was completely unaware of, which is that many who are autistic, that we can mirror in order, or they refer to it as mimicking. I prefer the word mirroring personally. Other people's behaviors, just because it's a way of like masking, a way of like fitting in, and sort of this like autopilot mode of like, I don't really know what this means or what to do here, but like you're doing it, so that's probably okay, right? And like also that's in general even neurotypical, right? As human beings, we want to fit in, we want to belong, right? That's something we talk so much about with, in GIWI. And so it's interesting because now that I don't mask so much more, like I basically, unless I really feel unsafe in a situation, or I just sort of revert in a way that is subconscious, I do not mask. I'm very excited about that. There's nothing right or wrong about masking, but that's something that I put a lot of effort into. And that impacts physical cues tremendously. And so through this, I realized how much I was mirroring. But here's what's interesting, and what comes up as Raven talks about mirroring, is that mirroring is a way that we often feel safe with someone else, or we can make someone else help someone. Well, not really make, you can't make somebody feel some way, but inspire and help somebody feel safe if you're mirroring them. So if I go to lean in and give a hug, and in my moment, I'm like, I really want this long hug right now. Like, that's what that embrace is
Mm-hmm.
going to be really soothing for me. But you give me a short hug, you better believe I'm going to notice it. And there's going to be a part of me that's going to be like, oh man, like I really wanted that long hug. And then my ego brain is going to be like, blah, 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 meaning, like they gave me a short hug, they didn't want to give me a long hug, maybe they don't want to spend time with me, maybe they don't like me, maybe they don't feel the same way, like all of these kinds of things. And so it is powerful to look at mirroring. And I think what's coming up, that something that both of you really spoke to, is there's the physical cues that we give, and then there's the physical cues that other people give, and everyone's physical cues unintentionally and intentionally impact each other, and how we do that. And that's partly why physical cues are so powerful, but they're not really the end all be all in terms of making sure that there's clear communication within your intimacy. And KJ speaking about the, you need to understand your own physical cues, is huge. That's how we know what we like and don't like in terms of what feels good. That's how we know, like, do I need to go to the doctor? Like, humans know
Right.
traditionally that headaches are not good. So if I have a headache, then I'm not well, and something's out of balance for me to address. And how do I need to address this? So physical cues are a big way to let you know of like how to respond. If I go to hold someone's hand and they pull away, that is a physical cue of not of I don't consent to this,
Mm-hmm.
right? But you've got to like be aware that that's a possible meaning of what that is, to pull the hand away. In the same way that if I put my hand out and we're walking for you to hold my hand, then that's an invitation, physical
Mm-hmm.
cue, right? Where it's like, I'm giving you the opportunity to hold my hand because I would like it. But here's the thing. Well, there's like a million ways to hold someone's hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe
Mm-hmm.
I'm a linker, or maybe I want to cuff it right now, or maybe I just want to do pinkies. Like there's all these different things, and they change depending on culture and experience. Like something as holding a hand might feel minor to someone, but for someone who's had physical abuse and trauma, well, going to reach out for the handhold, while it might be loving, while you may be connecting, while you may even be dating, and that may be something that this other person wants, their immediate reply might be a reaction from trauma. And so what I'm seeing from both of you is really there through the observer of physical cues, like there's so much more for us to all start to think about as we're doing
Mhm.
this, and continuing to communicate about this. And this leans into what I know Raven was super stoked about, and I'm also excited about. It's how can we use our body wisdom to build trust and sensuality with ourselves and others? Raven, how do we do this?
How? By having being in the observer mode. I told you this is a lifetime warranty for this tool. Literally, right? And it is being in the observer mode. we all have that innate body wisdom. But also too, there were so many vital, there's so many, gosh, it's such a great topic. God, it really is. So the way for me, I have some notes here, right? And it is about the way for me for sensual safety, right? Just sensual safety, intimacy with ourselves, right? But with the others. Like if I feel relaxed and not on edge, then I don't feel like I'm taking up space and I don't feel like I'm being rushed. And also, too, it's very vital for me to feel safe where I can literally be my whole self. And also, too, it's very vital for me where the other people that are around me or with me or whatever, and we're sharing space, that they feel safe, they feel seen, they feel heard. That is so vital for me. Same though for me too as well, those type of things. But if they're not going to hold the space or those things or no, then okay, right, some energies just don't vibe with other energies, and that is totally okay. But the thing of it is our body does have a reaction to those things. Because why? Because our ego gets so in the way, and we do and we do take things personally, absolutely. So that's why I just think it's so vital to be the observer, to really check in with your body wisdom. And also, how do other people don't even know what maybe their body of wisdom is, or because we're all different, right? And we're all wired different. We all think, and our perspectives are totally different. And somebody, like you said, when you brought up about the hug or just holding the hands and how we could cup, or the pinkies or the hug, that really is a big for me, because I'm a big hugger. Or a handshake. If it's a strong freaking handshake, and I'm like, ooh, yeah, man, they're really a strong person. Not to mention they're really in touch with their soul. I know that, right? And the hugs is a big difference, because if they're just like, all right, I don't, come on now, why'd you even bother? Like, hello, yeah, then that's I'm gonna be closed off, right? Because I'm a big like grab me bear hug type of, like a soul type grip hug. That's just how I am. So yes, those type of things, and that just okay, I can relax, be myself. We're going to have a great time. But if people are just not open to receive me, then I'm not going to find an exit way to wrap it up real nice and sweet and nonchalant and exit out, and know that that wasn't the space for me. And it's totally okay I'm totally okay with that. But other times when I was not aware, or what is body wisdom, or any of those things, no way, man. I just would get sarcastic, and you just like KJ said, that resting bitch face, like, don't talk to me. I was like that. I don't want to look at you. Don't look at me. Don't anything. If you're going to be fake, and I do know that, right? I won't look at you. Well, I'll look at you because I know you're not going to look at me, because I'm like, I see right through you. But those type of things, right? You just know if this is going to be an engaging conversation, or if it's not, or are they going to receive you, or any of those things, just by your appearance. They don't even have to, those physical cues too as well, but really vital for that body wisdom for you, and just to have that innate ability to trust in your body of wisdom too, because it does give you those green flags, those red flags. Yes.
my God, so much is coming up, including just like this awareness that I admittedly, because I have the privilege of sight, forget about a lot, which is coming back to me is like, well, if you don't have your sight, then physical cues, in a way, you do need more communication, but also their sensory is in that deprivation is
Yeah.
heightened otherwise. And so it's also like if you physically touch somebody, then that can be huge. Like the hugging, oh my God, I resonate with that so much. It's like an
Yeah.
imprint for me. Like I can bring myself back into the emotion and the moment of a hug. Like I remember so clearly the moment that KJ and I hugged the first time.
Oh,
Like
so
I remember it. And like I also feel like, Raven, it doesn't surprise me at all that you're that type of hugger. Like I feel like I would be disappointed. That's not the type of
right. That's just what I do. Like, nice to meet you. And I just freaking grab, that's just, but I also respect people's space because they're not like we've already said, people have trauma and they're not comfortable with people that sensory touch or don't touch me. And you just know because they'll give off those physical cues that they're closed off to that. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's so much about communication around consent with this and everything as well. KJ, how can we use our body wisdom to build trust and sensuality with ourselves and others?
It's such a great conversation. And what I love is that it's highlighting for me kind of our whole premise with GIWI, right? Is that there are so many layers to intimacy, right? There's so many layers and nuances in daily life, but in every aspect that we talk about, it comes back to, wow, well, there's this layer and this layer, and that relates to this, right? And so I love that this conversation about physical cues being one source of information and communication. But the fact is, we also verbally are expressing and communicating about our physical cues, right? Our physical cues give us a balance point, right? We'll say, okay, well, this is how I'm feeling. I'm feeling this way. I'm checking in. This is what this means to me. And then being able to communicate that to others. Like, especially like Jamie said, there are those that are neurospicy, right? Or we're wired differently. Everybody is wired differently, right? So we communicate differently. We have the different traumas and experiences in life, and it's easy to ask questions for me. For some people, not so much. But I am one also definitely a hugger, Raven, and it's my absolute favorite thing when strangers ask me, "Can I give you a hug?" And I'm like, "Yes,
Me too. Right?
right."
Same. I'm the same. Yeah.
It's amazing. Hugs are healing. I mean, this has been studied too. We already know because they are heart to heart, the heart
Yeah.
coherence. It's so healing. And especially, as a giver of a hug, just that unconditional love, right? That you're just like, we're all human. So I love that aspect of it. The other thing is that like the specific layer of sensuality, right? Bodies, that's our being. We talk about being having a soul experience, being an energetic soul beings, having this human experience. This is our beingness, right? Our bodies are our physical manifestation. And so they're intimately tied, obviously, right? And so to me, because I love this conversation because of my personal experience, right? We've talked a little bit about in various different episodes the fact that I was raised in a cult and therefore repressed and disconnected and dissociating, right? Trying, as much as my body was screaming at me, to different degrees, let's say I was in touch and aware. I was very much aware of the pain and dis-ease and discomfort and like the problems that were coming up in my body, but I was emotionally not aware, right? Checked out, all of the things. The other thing that this conversation brings up is that the body keeps the scorebook, right? I know you both are probably familiar with that, right? It has, and that it's literally been studied. Our bodies store experiences, right? Whether it's trauma, whether it's a positive experience, like that kind of stuff can be stored in our tissues and our bones, right? And so there's somatic releases and there's exercise and movement is so, healthy for so many reasons. So for me, my journey of self-exploration has been very critical, right? Just in a sensual and sexual way. Like for me, figuring out what I like and then building that comfort to express and explore with others. Right. So for me, it's been a huge part of my journey is tuning into my body on that level, right? What feels good? Like Jamie said, consent, right? Does this touch feel good? Does this touch feel good right now? No, not necessarily, right? So yeah, sometimes my partner wants to hold my hand and I'm like, no, either I don't want to, I'm busy, my brain is somewhere else, right? So, and that's fine. It's fine. Our bodies are going to change. Women, we go through hormonal cycles every month, right? Where it definitely changes. Right. So that's again, when we're talking about intimacy starting with me, that's what I think about is this building sensuality with myself first and knowing and then being able to communicate both with my body and my words, right, to others. And the other thing that has been that I was thinking of earlier is, in many different ways, our body is either tightening or relaxing, right? We've talked about that different states of calm and relaxation versus not, right? We're talking about safety. We're talking about consent. If your stomach, the sensation of your stomach being tight, the sensation of your stomach having butterflies and maybe being nervous, excited, right? And then the concept of being completely relaxed where maybe you were, and it could be a momentary, it could be like somebody cuts you off and you thought you were going to get hit and you stop your car, right? And then you're like, everything is fine. It wasn't personal. And I'm safe, right? So there's just so many different nuances. So I definitely love the conversation. So good.
You brought up so many good things, KJ, and yeah, it's there. I could literally branch off into like 7 different directions right now, and I just keep coming back to this really big aspect for me is the physical aspect is not enough regardless of your bodies and abilities in order to completely ensure clarity and confirmation on what this means. And this is not a blame or a shame on the physical at all. These are alarms, these are cues, these are awarenesses that, it's like a game of telephone. It's like something happens, there's a stimulation, right? The cause. The effect is my physical body responds, and then mentally and emotionally there's like a processing and a back and forth of like what's really going on, and then like occasionally pinging up to the spiritual, yeah, don't worry, like we needed this to happen, you're activated, you're good, and whether you're talking about physical cues within yourself or whether you're talking about with others, there's got to be more communication, because even the more you get to know someone, things can change, especially the more that you get to know yourself. Because now I'm much more mindful of my energy. I used to just hug whomever, and I love hugging. I'm a long hugger. I could be lost in a hug for an hour and be in heaven with the person that it resonates with. But now, when I go around the world, especially since the pandemic, I'm more aware that people are more aware of their physical cues and what they want and don't want, and not acknowledging that I don't know what is happening for someone in every given moment, and that we can experience multiple things at once. So, like, for example, for me, a physical cue that could mean a number of different things is vibration and tremor. So, since I was 2, I have had a physical tremor, and oftentimes is worse in the early part of the day and in the evening. And it's like not like on typical, since I'm not a neurosurgeon, it's like not a big part, it's like not a big deal. However, over time, I've learned and observed there are different levels of that mean different things than just like my tremor and everything's fine. Like, I've started to, through the development of my spiritual intimacy, I have started to realize, well, wait a minute, like, I'm a human tuning fork. And so, was this ever something that was medical to begin with, or was it just that something happened and medical people recognized that this was happening first? Right. So now I look at it as like, oh, like my body is vibrating. That's on course. That's what it's meant to be happening. If I'm doing a healing session with Reiki with someone and I'm vibrating, well, sometimes my body will go like this. And that's not necessarily a negative thing or something that means something. That means to me, okay, there's a lot of activation that's going on and we're moving a lot of energy, or something's very active here. If I am very nauseous, my shaking intensifies like that. But that is a physical cue that I do not feel well and something is not going well. I probably don't want to be touched. It's like virtually the only time ever that I don't want to be touched by someone who I would want to touch me. And then also like feeling activated within myself. Like if I'm getting a Kundalini vibration, like, okay, something's awakening. There are times where I've had sexual and sensual intimacy with myself or mostly with others, and my body used to just start shaking. And the person I'd be with would be like, what's going on? Like, your whole body is shaking. And I'm like, I know, I can't really control it. Like, I don't really know, And it's like, because I didn't even understand what was going on, I didn't know how to even that. What ended up happening then was I felt shamed, scared, and confused. They felt confused and concerned and insecure. We felt insecure both separately and together for different things, right? Like, the communication is needed. Well, if I know someone really well, right, then I'm going to start to learn people's cues, but they can also be something different. Like, there are certain people that I have a communication with where the conversation we have overall that we check in on occasionally is like, well, who's the one who initiates? So, like, number one, like, anyone can initiate, but it's also like, because I am the one who tends to be more physically like driven into some sort of intimacy and communication with someone, the communication is usually like, I am the one who initiates, and then if they don't want it, then they will make it known. But there had to be actual verbiage communication, like, and even recent conversations, and it can't just happen one time. So the body wisdom is imperative to have that understanding for ourselves, to know how we're going to react, to know how to explain it to someone else. For everyone that looks different, for everyone that feels different, for not everyone understands the intricacies of what it is that their cues mean or what they're feeling in every given moment. And it can get even more complicated when you're experiencing many different sensations or overstimulated. That's just another way that I could be shaking, when it's like I'm not aware even that I'm overstimulated and then my body is shaking, right? So understanding that one physical cue it's not a one size fits all, not just for yourself, but even in that circumstance or that moment, and how much this develops over time. And as we talk about a lot on GIWI, as you change, these things change. That's natural. So that's why it's important to have other aspects of communication within that intimacy to build that trust and that sensuality with themselves, and to reevaluate. And if something felt good once but doesn't feel good now, or doesn't feel good in this particular situation, like how I'll openly say, like, if I am nauseous, touching me, that's like the only time. Don't touch me when I'm feeling incredibly nauseous. Any other time, I probably want to be held, swaddled, any number of things. Now, if it took me through like a machine where it's like a narrow thing, I get claustrophobic.
Right.
Also, don't touch me, but like maybe hold my toe. Like, I mean, so how we can use the wisdom is that observer mode and that connection with the self and the added communication. And that's where I see these things. And I can't wait to engage deeper in this conversation in our deep dive next week. And I know that we have some comments. KJ, take us through them.
Yes, Rev Lee says, and people's eyes will move and break contact when searching internally for answers. A very, very good point. Yes, we talked about eye contact earlier and how that can be vastly nuanced, right? For sure. And he also said, yes, mirroring is a powerful tool we can use in supporting others in self-discovery. Absolutely. For sure. And tone of voice. I think this is actually really valuable. How we say things as well as what is being said. I actually am excited to dive into that more in our deep dive because our throats are part of our physical being. And we, at least Jamie and I for sure, have talked so much about throat chakra healing, right? And what that means. That's a big part of our physical being and our ability to communicate and how we use our voice. And Raven, earlier when you were talking about tone of voice, right? That can be a signal. People's voice changes in different emotional settings, right? For sure. Your tone of voice can go up, it can go down. That it's huge. So thank you for that, Lee. I'm excited to dive into that more next time for sure. And thank you as always for watching and supporting. And we're very excited for our deep dive. Jamie, do you want to go over how our schedule is going to change?
Yeah, that's a good point. Though admittedly was not totally prepared for that. I was going to speak to next week. But yes, the schedule is going to slightly change. That's a good point. So we are going to be back for our deep dive next week on the 18th. Our usual time, 1 p.m. PST, 3 p.m. CST, 4 p.m. EST. And then on the 25th and the 1st of August, we are going to be closed down. So one of the best ways to enjoy our content is catch up on whatever episodes you missed or tap into InsightTimer, where we are like super, super, super close to the three of us doing more on there, but we do have some content in our beautiful playlist, Getting Intimate with Intimacy, that people are really enjoying. And then in the Wake and Wellness Center group on InsightTimer, we are also continuing the conversation. And intimacy is coming up a lot more. So it's super exciting. And we will be back so divinely on the 8/8 portal, which is the perfect time to have an integration session on the physical cues. And Leos are so physical and in that and have so many ways of communicating in that way. So I'm really, really excited to bring all of that in and to share in that special time. So we will see you again next week for a deep dive, 2 weeks off, and then we will be reconvening on August 8th, and so many exciting things to come going forward. I loved this conversation. This might be, dare I say, a favorite, possibly, the episodes. That feels overwhelming to say out loud, but that's how I feel right now about it. So I'm just gonna say how I feel right now for sure. Oh, we have one more comment. Hold on. Oh yes. I was pointing that at you, Rev Lee. Family
Leo.
Got my verbal.
I do too. I'm a Leo.
Anyway,
I'm ready.
Yeah, so ready. So we will see you all next week. Again, 1 p.m. PST, 3 p.m. CST, 4 p.m. EST for our deep dive, continuing this awesome conversation. And remember, intimacy
starts within.
We love you unconditionally, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Be well.